Hi everyone, welcome to today's investor Q&A with Outland Denim. I'm Anna, I'm one of the campaign managers here at Birchal. I'm joined today by what is probably a very familiar face to you. I'm joined by James Bartle from Outland Denim. Now, before we get into the good stuff, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm beaming in from today. Birchal is based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, Birchal is working with Outland Denim on an upcoming crowdsource funding offer. What is crowdsource funding, you might ask? It's also known as equity crowdfunding. It's a relatively new form of fundraising in Australia that allows startups, small businesses, and growing businesses to raise capital from a larger number of smaller or retail investors and wholesale or sophisticated investors through an online platform just like Birchal. Instead of seeking funding from traditional sources such as banks or venture capitalists, companies can actually turn to the general public, often their communities, customers, people who are dedicated fans of the business, to raise money in exchange for shares or equity in the business. Now, Birchal Financial Services will be the licensed intermediary for the offer, and the information and discussion in today's session is for informational purposes and should not be considered as advice or a recommendation to invest. Please, as always, do your own research, consider the offer document and the general CSF risk warning before investing. That's available on birchal.com, which I dare say is how you've found yourselves here today. Now, we're almost done with the boring bits because you're not here to hear from me. A little bit of quick info about how today's session will run. We'll have a great presentation from James, and then we'll throw to a Q&A. So you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, there's a little Q&A bubble. As we're going throughout the presentation, I'm sure lots of questions will come up. Please pop them in as we go through, and we'll get to those at the end. Now, never fear if you've got to duck off. I get it. We are super busy. This session will be recorded, so we'll be circulating that afterwards. And please also share with your friends if there was someone who couldn't make it. And that will be coming through to you shortly. So that is enough from me. Without further ado, handing over and introducing James, who I'm super excited for you all to hear from. If you've not heard him speak before, he's incredibly inspiring. So thanks. Take it away, James.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you to all of you guys that have joined today, taking up your lunch breaks to listen to what this opportunity looks like. Today, I'm really hoping just to cover a range of things, but predominantly I want you to leave today having a good overall understanding of what it is that we're here to achieve as a group of brands within the fashion industry. But I think it's important for those of you who haven't heard the story of how we all began that we do start there, and then we'll go into talking about what our impact strategy looks like and what the commercial model looks like across 4 brands that we'll speak to today. It was nearly 12 years ago, and my wife and I had gone with some friends to the movies, and we had gone to see the Liam Neeson film Taken, and I'm sure most of you guys are aware of that film and also aware that it's a fictional film. But for me, it was a really impacting movie. It was the first time I was made aware of the reality of human trafficking and slavery. And my wife's she's the brains of our family, and she spent a few years following that event educating me on the realities of what this particular issue looked like. I learned that there's an estimated 50 million people that are caught up in slavery today. And so that's an overwhelming number of people that are impacted by this issue. Over those few years, as I was learning more about the issue, I came into contact with a rescue organization that specialized in the identification and rescue of young women throughout Southeast Asia that had been trafficked and sold into various industries. It could have been the sex industry, the garment sector, lots of different areas. And so I had the opportunity to travel with them to see what this issue looked like on the ground. I'll never forget landing in Thailand, in Bangkok, and just how busy and hectic this place was. And we jumped in this little car and we drove out to a place in Pattaya, and it was called Walking Street. They told me it was the sex capital of the world. And I remember walking down the street, and as I looked into the buildings on the left and the right, I just saw happy patrons. I saw people having a good time, smiles on their faces. And as we spent a little bit more time there, I was confused as to what this issue was that I'd seen on this film Taken and what I imagined slavery to look like. to then seeing the realities of what they were telling me it looked like on the ground. And I remember saying to the Australian director of the organization at the time that, is this what it is? That they seem happy. I understand that this mightn't be their ideal career choice, but everybody seems to be happy. And he said, oh, James, I'll take you further. And so he took me out of the tourist area into another area. And I'll never forget the moment where we walked along this street, and up ahead on the right-hand side, I could see a lineup of girls, like there had been many lines previously. But this one was different in that there was a young girl standing in that line. And at the time, I had nieces of my own, and they were a little bit younger than this girl, but this girl may have been 12 or 13 years old. And I remember just as we approached her, seeing how intimidated and scared she was. You know, that was the moment for me that I stood there feeling like the injustice and the craziness of this world that would allow something like this to exist was a pretty overwhelming feeling. And I just remember saying to myself that I dedicate my life to doing something about this issue. And at the time, I really wanted to be like Liam Neeson, and I wanted to be the guy that was able to kick the door down and run away with that little girl over my shoulder and save the day. But as I'd been educated by my wife for those few years previously, it was very clear that this was an economic problem. If we were really ever going to change anything about this issue, we needed to address the root cause, and the root cause in many cases is poverty. And so how did we come against an issue that has been there for all of time, and something that seems so overwhelming and so difficult to address? And leaving there, Thailand, we traveled into Cambodia, and as we traveled through Cambodia, we saw the challenges that Cambodia was facing on an economic level, following the genocide that happened 40 odd years earlier, and people impacted everywhere, and therefore things like slavery were thriving. My heart really went out to those people, and I decided that this is where we needed to do something. And so we set up in Cambodia, and we set up originally with just a few young women that wanted a new opportunity. Our model was designed to be able to give the tools to those that came into working with us to be able to succeed and thrive. And over a period of time, we really learned how to do this. And it became very clear to us that this was much more powerful than a charity model. And I want to talk a little bit more about that so you understand it very quickly, in that our goal is not to save the day. Our goal is to equip those that come into employment with Outland Denim and our associated brands to have the skills and the talents and equip them with it and foster their talents to be able to be successful themselves. And there's one particular story that I just want to share with you guys here, which is a story that I think demonstrates the impact that this kind of model can have. And that was the very first person that we ever employed. She had been exploited in some terrible ways, but before being exploited, she lived with her family, and she lived under a plastic sheet. They were a very poor family. So her mum, dad, siblings all lived there. And unfortunately, she was exploited in some terrible ways and went into the care of the NGO group that was specializing in the rescuing of her. When she came across to work with us, she had no skills as a seamstress, and she had to learn pretty much everything from the beginning. But she was somebody that was hungry to learn, and she wanted to learn the practical skills, how to be able to sew and sew really well. And she also wanted to learn all the other things that we were offering. So that was education. We wanted to teach them things like financial literacy and women's health, and equip them with the little educational gaps that they might have. Many of the people we work with might only have a grade 3 education. Some don't even have an education. They can't read or write for many of them, not all of them. So it became really clear to us that these are the things that we need to be able to equip these people with for them to be successful. But of course, it takes years to be able to work out whether these things really work or they don't. After a number of years, we were surveying, as we do regularly, and just working out what is and what isn't working with our model. And this is probably, I would say, one of the career highlights for me so far. As we talked to this young lady who came to us as a 17-year-old and was now in her 20s, and asked and wanted to learn more about the impact of this kind of employment and opportunity. She went to tell us that she'd been able to build a home for her family. And, you know, at that moment, you're thinking that this is incredible, you know, because everything in you all the way along wants to just go and build a home for everybody you come across that you see needs one. You want to go home and just raise money to build homes. She had been reporting previous to this that she felt she had no dignity. So when she was talking to the counselors and those that specialize in helping them deal with the trauma they've faced, that was one of the big issues for her, is that dignity was something she believed she had lost. But she's now built this home for her family. And, you know, we're all sitting there tearing up, hearing this story. And then she went on to talk about how she was also able to buy her sister back from a man that owned her. And I know to most of us probably on this call, that sounds like a movie. But unfortunately for the 50-odd million people alive today that are caught up in slavery, that is a reality. That somebody owns them. Somebody has tricked or coerced them to be in a certain place where they shouldn't be, and they don't have freedom. And so this is one of the major reasons that we exist as an organization. I'm going to read you what our vision is here, and that is to harness the power of our fashion industry to uplift humanity and heal the planet. And that probably sounds like a pretty outlandish vision to many of you, to think that, okay, of course we can uplift humanity if we do the things that I've just talked to you about, but how is it even possible that we would be able to heal the planet through an industry which is one of the most exploitive industries in the world? Well, that's one of the things that I really hope that you can leave with today, understanding a little bit more of what our vision looks like and our strategy to be able to achieve that. I'm going to play you just a little video of some of the of a thank you and the appreciation that's been written down by some of our seamstresses, that's been read by people that are not our seamstresses, for you to listen to.
When I was young, my family was very poor.
When I was 15 years old, I was abused.
I have a disability and cannot use one leg and one of my arms. I used to work in a garment factory. When the chemicals touched my skin, I developed red welts. In Outland Denim Sewing Room, I have a lot of people encouraging me. They empower me. I don't feel bad about my body, even though I can only use one leg on the sewing machine.
Working here is safe. Outland has taught me not just sewing skills, but life skills. They encourage me, even if I make a mistake.
It's like I have another family. I want to thank you for buying my jeans.
Thank you for buying these jeans.
Thank you for buying my jeans and for giving me a brighter future.
It has changed my life.
And that's why I got them.
I don't show you that video to try and make you cry, but I show you the video because I think it's really important for you to understand just how powerful the consumption of goods can be. Our goal is that we're creating products, and as a result of creating that product, it activates a cycle of freedom for the person who made it and those before them within the supply chain as well, but also has the potential to heal the planet. And I think that's the part that probably most of you guys would be skeptical about. Well, how on earth is it possible? And so as I speak through this page that I've got up in front of us right now, with some of the awards and certifications that we've got, I think it's important to speak to why those things are there, and that really speaks to what our model is. You can see that we're a B Corp up on the top left there, and you know that's a really important one to us. We love what B Corporation is, what it stands for, and most importantly, we love that it inspires so many other brands. Right next to it is the Stop Slavery Award, and that's awarded by the Thomson Reuters Foundation. And in 2018, we were finalists alongside Apple, and then the following year, we won the award for SMEs. So that was a huge moment to us because it's exactly what we exist for, is to be able to stop slavery. And to be recognized by the Thomson Reuters is a huge thing. You'll go through and you can see a range of other awards there. You'll see Best for the World in Community. That's a B Corporation award. World Justice Challenge finalist, and we've won the CO Leadership Awards in 2022 as well. So there's been some incredible acknowledgement of the work that that the entire team and ambassadors and supporters, investors have done around building this kind of impact. To be able to create a product, though, that has the impact that I'm claiming we're trying to create takes a lot of money and a lot of investment, and that's what we've been investing into since conception. And as we go through a few more of these slides, I want to share how you guys can invest into this and what it looks like and what your ownership would be, and what you would own a piece of if you were to invest. This is our company structure chart, and you'll notice at the top there is an Outland Denim Proprietary Limited holding company. This is the company that we're raising money into. So anybody who makes an investment now will own a piece, they'll own shares in that company. And then underneath that, you'll see that there's 4 other holding companies, and those holding companies are the first one on the left-hand side. I hope it's the left to you. It might be the right, I'm not sure, but Outland Denim Holdings. That is where the Outland Denim brand operates from, or that holds, the trading and the IP companies. And it's been set up specifically like this to give lots of security around investments and to be able to give us a better structure to trade from. You'll go across a little bit further and you'll see EcoCore Holdings, Denim. Then the next one along is Raytex Trading. That's our manufacturing arm, and we call that Maker. And then you'll go across to Huskland Holdings, which is a joint venture. So we only own 60% of that, which is really important to point out to you guys. And this is the company where I want to talk a lot about a big part of where our investment into the environmental side of the impact goes. We're going to get on to talking about the group and what that looks like as it's broken down into the individual brands. But this is just an overview of if we owned Nobody Denim in the financial year 2023, the combined brand revenue across the brands that we hold would have been $8 million. So we'll start with Outland Denim. Outland Denim is how we launched. It's the brand we launched with. We launched with no customers and no market. And I want to just share a couple of little stories about the journey of getting to where we are. But we launched the brand at the end of 2016. We launched in Brisbane in the hottest summer of the last 100 years with a little pop-up in Paddington. And I'll never forget. I mean, it was a fantastic test, really, for the brand. But we launched with one skinny men's jean and one skinny women's jean. And I don't know how on earth we thought we were going to be able to sell the jeans, but we had people walking in with sweaty legs, going to the change room, trying to squeeze into a pair of skinny jeans to only buy them. But they were confused as to why we were trying to sell these jeans in a market that, in a suburb that was so hot at that time of the year. And but what it really demonstrated to us was that when people understood the way their product was made, they will purchase even in uncomfortable conditions. And so it was a really powerful moment for us as a brand to realize the power of our story, the power of the reason we exist. And then we saw how many people want to partner with us through purchasing and wearing that product. We then continued on and we started to tell the world that we were here and we existed. And in 2017, my wife thought it would be a great idea for me to travel to New York to go to a WWD summit where I would hear from the world's leaders in fashion about what the future of fashion looked like. I'll never forget walking in and seeing this huge room full of all of these fashion experts and listening over a couple of days to the conversation about what the future looked like, giving advice to brands on how to be able to be relevant in the future. But there was a narrative that consistently came through, which was really concerning. And that narrative was, what country to go to next to exploit. Now, they didn't use the word exploit. The words that they used was which country was going to give you greatest margins, what was the cheapest country to produce in. And unfortunately, our industry is known for this. It's known for its reputation of going in and exploiting countries and then leaving as soon as the cost of production rises. I felt like I was a duck out of water and I didn't belong. And then this Canadian guy walks up beside me and he says, introduces himself and asks what I did, and I told him. And he went on to tell me that it was a pretty tough market and it was going to be really challenging for me. His wife was pretty embarrassed by the words that he said, and so she invited me to lunch. The three of us went to lunch, and I tried to sell them that this was an opportunity that could be taken into Canada, where he owned a 130-year-old fashion distribution business where they'd been distributing brands like Calvin Klein and Ben Sherman, other great, really well-known brands. And I came back to Australia and spent the next 6 months trying to contact this guy. He pretty much ghosted me for the next 6 months until eventually one night his wife had a dream about me, and it was an appropriate dream, I can assure you. And I that same day emailed him, and he finally took my call. He flew me over to Canada and he took a risk on us, and he said, I'm going to put you in front of the best retailers that Canada has. We went straight to Holt Renfrew, which is an incredibly high-end department store, and we sat in front of their buyers, and within an hour they had emailed him saying, we're going to back this brand. We then went on to Harry Rosen's, which is probably arguably the best menswear store in the world. And it was a really scary moment presenting. They were very hard-nosed. And after 20 minutes, which was what the time allocation they had given us, they continued to ask questions. And we left an hour and a half later with Harry Rosen wanting to commit to backing the brand. Mike left and said, I've never seen in the 30 years of being in business a brand to get the cut through that we just got through. And so it was another clear demonstration to us of just how important brand story is, and all the more now. We go into 2018 and Meghan Markle somehow comes across our product. She wears it on the Royal Tour, and all of a sudden the world starts to hear about this Outland Denim brand. That gave us opportunities to be able to speak to retailers that we never would have imagined we could talk to. It meant that we launched into Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's, and we had 3 weeks of sales before COVID shut the world down. So then over the next few years, we spent our time confining, bringing everything back, and really refining everything, every process that we do from manufacturing all the way through to brand to be able to launch strong. We're really proud to say that we've just launched into that international market again with Moda Operandi and Anthropologie. And they're two incredible retailers. If you don't know who they are, look them up. But our strategy was, when we go back into the international market, we now need to launch with really top tier retailers that we're going to be able to get that price point that we're chasing and align with a part of the market which is much more durable when it comes to the economic pressures that we're all facing right now. We're also really excited to say that we've got an age collaboration which will be launching internationally next month. And that's going to be a really huge moment for us as a brand. We can see that our brand is really growing, and this is a way of highlighting it. And we hope that you guys will be able to watch along with that. Don't forget to write your questions down as they might be coming up for you, so that we can address those at the end. Then you'll hear about Nobody Denim. And Nobody is a brand that we've admired for a really long time. We've watched it. We've been inspired by it. And only a few months ago, I was given the opportunity to look at buying the brand. It's not something that I could have turned away from. I was because we love the brand and what it's always stood for. We went down and traveled to Melbourne where they're based and started to look through the brand and what would it look like if we joined, if Nobody joined the Outland Denim Group. After a lot of due diligence, we made the decision to buy the trademarks. And so I think this is a really important points to highlight to everybody here, is that we were offered assets to buy, and that's what we've done. And there's a big difference between that and buying a business. We did not buy the Nobody Denim business. We bought the trademarks and some assets. And so what that means for us is that we've been able to bring those in to be able to trade the Nobody Denim name and use that to be able to grow the social and environmental impact that our group vision has. Nobody is a 25-year-old business. It's stocked in over 143 stores. David Jones is its biggest retailer, along with The Iconic. And so what it represents for us is an opportunity to scale our business. The commercial side of this makes a lot of sense for us to be able to grow it because of the efficiencies, the way we're going to be able to operate multiple brands. It doesn't cost twice as much to operate 2 brands. And so it means that we can gain a lot of efficiencies there. But it also means that we're able to take that manufacturing into Cambodia. Unfortunately, before we purchased the Nobody brand trademarks, the factory had already closed. They weren't able to keep that open because they were closing things down and selling off the assets. And unfortunately, they had made the decision that had to close, and for very good reason, I understand. What it does mean is, for the people we're trying to help, is that this is going to create lots more employment and lots more opportunities to women who are currently in exploitative situations. And so this brand signifies a really huge step for us as a group. Maker is the next one, and that is our manufacturing arm. One of the things that we really focused on during the years of COVID and the scaling back and needing to keep things really tight was to really get our manufacturing business humming along. And as you can see on the slide here, you can see the incredible brands that we're producing for. And, you know, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, at the end of 2020, would we be making for these brands, I would have probably doubted that we would have been able to get all of these amazing, incredible brands. And one to point out there is the Thank You brand. We've also watched Thank You for a really long time. They're a brand that exists to be able to create the same kinds of impact as us. And you'll see them in lots of supermarkets. They sell soap and all sorts of things. And so we've done recently made T-shirts and for them, and so it's been an incredible opportunity for us to be able to expand the impact that we're able to have through external brand partnerships. And you can see there that there's a 2,400% growth since 2020. So that's a huge thing. It's also good to point out that this is where the social impact happens in the first tier. So in the manufacturing, we own the business in Cambodia. So we have complete control over the manufacturing arm. That's where we employ people. That's where the educational opportunities happen. And our goal for this is to continue to scale it. So we're going to scale it in 2 ways. We're going to scale it through external brands, like you can see here, but we're also scaling it through the growth of Nobody Denim and Outland Denim. And obviously, those 2 brands, that is the ultimate, to be able to have a vertical brand where you're able to clip the ticket on the manufacturing margins, but then also on the retailing of those products as well. And so we feel that we've got a really safe model. We've got the model where when other brands are doing better and they're getting growth, we're able to benefit from that, but we're also able to benefit from our own brands as well. We're going to go into a Q&A, and I've flicked over that as fast as I could. I think I was allocated about half an hour to do that, and we seem to have just got into that time. I'm also going to introduce you to our CFO, Kaylee Haig, and she's going to join me for the Q&A, as there could be some questions that she'll be able to answer better than I can as well.
Hey guys, nice to meet you all.
Hello.
I've been with Outland for 3 years, so yeah, it's great to be involved with this and see the progression of the business.
Amazing. So thanks everyone for popping those questions in. We've got a little bit of time now, so I've got a few questions I'd love to kick us off with while people are probably hotly writing these questions in The first question I've got, so you've mentioned that your vision is to harness the fashion industry's power. Now, what do you think makes the fashion industry the most appropriate industry to address this social problem?
Look, I think what you've done now, Anna, is you've highlighted the fact that I missed one of the slides, which was all around the environmental side of what we do. So I'm gonna talk to you about that. I don't know how I did that, but look, I think the fashion industry, because of the environmental degradation that's associated with it, you know, it's very high in the energy and water chemical consumption, and so therefore it's the ultimate industry to be able to use. But then also, you know, we're all wearing clothes every day. And if you think about what kind of clothes, I mean, jeans are the most incredible product, especially when you're talking in the premium space. You buy a beautiful pair of jeans and you've got them forever. The beauty of these jeans and the jeans that we make is that they come with a story. That thank you heard read out in that little video earlier, a thank you similar to that is written on the inside of every product that we make. And it's really important because we want our customers to be able to connect to our seamstresses and understand that they are a really vital part of their freedom. And I think that's a really positive, you know, commercial move to make, because, you know, we know that the trend today is that consumers are looking for opportunities to be able to make a difference. And I think the beauty of this is that with your everyday purchase or every time you buy a pair of jeans, you know that you're part of the solution rather than the problem. But then on the environmental side, you know, it's a huge opportunity. And what the slide that I actually missed in here was that we've been investing into technology over the last 4 years that can potentially change the environmental impact of a product. And we do that because, you know, the things that we're hearing about today, the issues that we hear is that there's too much carbon in the atmosphere and we need to get it out of the atmosphere and into the ground. And so when we start to think about that, we think, well, what an opportunity that is, because when cotton is grown and other fibers are growing, it's sequestering this carbon out of the atmosphere and putting it in the ground. So how do we harness that process to be able to create a cycle that makes growing and wearing and then putting a product back into the soil a really positive thing? And so the technology that we've invested into, it does just this. The commercial side, it has 4 revenue streams. It's using waste, so it's diverting textiles that would be going into landfill. And currently here in Australia, there's more than 200,000 tonnes per year, which is the latest statistics that have just come out through the Australian Fashion Council. And therefore, this presents a huge opportunity to be able to, one, address this problem, but two, have a really commercially viable opportunity to scale that globally as well. So that's something we're working on. There's not a lot of information, you know, it's a proprietary thing. We've got provisional patents on this technology. There's a lot more work on the IP side to do, but this is probably one of the most exciting environmental aspects to what we do, along with all the energy, water and chemical saving technology we've already got implemented into our factory in Cambodia.
Amazing. And while we're on the factory in Cambodia, can you share with everyone a little bit of information about that? How many people do you employ there? Is there any way of, you know, quantifying the impact that you're having there?
Yeah, look, we have about 100 staff there now. And to quantify the impact, yeah, there is ways to quantify it. I mean, we used to say, when we would do surveys, we would follow out where does it get to? And one of the most powerful parts of the impact is the educational process. And so that'll be around things. It could be women's health, and it could be breastfeeding. It could be financial literacy. There's a range of things. Khmer literacy, learning to read and write. But when you teach one person in a family, we're measuring how far out does that actually get, and we were able to measure that it goes out about 10 people on average. And so this is about 3 years ago, we were able to say that at that point in time, 750 people were being impacted consistently as a result of the employees we had at that time. It would be greater than that now. And obviously, it's one of those things that that little seed turns into a big tree, because, you know, every time somebody learns something and they're able to pass that on in their community, it just continues to get wider and wider. And so that's one of the reasons we're so excited about the educational material that's able to be used to educate them. And then all the things like healthcare, you know, there's a nurse that's on full time, and we have a doctor that comes and visits. And so things like cervical cancer screening and things like that they'd never get otherwise, they're able to get by coming and working with Outland. And so ultimately, the goal is that we say, if we wouldn't be prepared to work there or work in those conditions, then why should anybody else? And so we're really trying to create those kinds of working environments.
Yeah. And I'll do a shameless plug for you. I recently listened to your podcast with Princess Eugenie in her, she has a charity, the Anti-Slavery Collective. So if anyone on the call hasn't listened to that yet, you must do it. And you shared a great story, which I thought was really interesting as well, where you're actually paying attention to the current needs and not just what you think those needs are, and listening to and understanding as the times are changing and as, you know, your employees there are going through their life, you know, addressing the needs that come up. And I thought that was really, really a wonderful story that you shared on there as well. So go and listen to that, everybody. We've got a few questions here about your strategy. So Luke has asked, what will the primary FY24 strategy entail with respect to partnerships, and will denim and fashion remain a sole category of pursuit for Outland Denim? And I guess your growing portfolio of brands in the short term.
Yeah, good question. For Outland Denim, the strategy is we're really focusing on the top tier retailers and expanding into them and getting really solid sell through. So as you saw in one of the slides, we've just launched with Motor Operandi, and again, that's top tier retailer. We've got global reach with that particular retailer. And before they had even launched it started with a pre-order. Before they even launched the product, they had to reorder, and they reordered 3 times across the season. And so we had about 100% sell through in 90% of the products. And so it was just a mind-blowing moment. And again, it's another demonstration of one, if your product can match your story, which we've got the most beautiful products and an incredible story. And we saw that the Motor Operandi customer wanted to be a part of that. We've now just picked up Anthropologie as well, and we're really hopeful for really strong sell through there as well. So that strategy is about selling through in those top tier retailers, getting more of those top tier retailers, and being able to expose the brand to more people. And so to expose the brand, there is an influencer strategy. That influencer strategy is actually working really well. We haven't got influencers that are being paid at the moment to do it. We've got influencers that are putting their hand up because they believe in the brand. And I think that's also another really powerful thing. It's not that we won't pay influencers in the future. It's just that it shows that they believe in what we're trying to achieve. And this is one way they can contribute. So we're getting great cut through there. And we also believe in bricks and mortar retail. So not just those top tier international retailers, it's our retailers here in Australia. We want our retailers to really thrive. If they're thriving, our brand will thrive. We want more space on their floor. And we know that every sale that we take from a competitor is a sale that is going to change someone's life for the better. And so we're really motivated. And when we educate our retailers consistently around impact of our product, it does start to happen. You'll see in incredible retailers like EcoD throughout Melbourne and South Australia, you'll see that we get great shelf space. We're in all their stores and we're getting amazing sell through there. So it's really about focusing on those bricks and mortar retailers, those international retailers, influencer strategy. And then the last thing is really making sure that the content that's coming through on our website, which is currently being rebuilt, is accurate with where we want our brand to go. And when I mean accurate, I mean the lifestyle and the image that we're presenting is at the forefront. And I think one of the important things to think about is when we sell our product, the Outland Denim product, we want you to buy our product because it is beautiful, because it fits right, because the quality is amazing and you love and you can align with the lifestyle of the brand. And the cherry on top is that you just changed somebody's life as a result of wearing it, and you contributed to potentially healing the planet in the future with the technology we're working on. So that's ultimately Outland Denim. Nobody Denim, it's a similar brand and it has a similar customer. And so the strategy there is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done around both brands and making sure that they don't, we used to get really excited when we'd take a retailer Nobody Denim. Now we want both brands to be in that store. And so it's really important that the strategy there is that we're not cannibalizing each other, that we're actually positioning each other really well beside each other to be able to maximize that sale. And I think as you think about customers and do you want to wear one brand from top to toe? Often you don't. You do want different brands, and this is an amazing opportunity for us to be able to provide that for people. Outland being very fashion forward. Nobody Denim's got that everyday piece. It's got that core collection really dialed. Outland also has a really solid core collection. So really making sure that we're positioning those really well is the biggest priority that we've got.
Yeah. And so you've mentioned the customer there a few times. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Outland customer? We've got a question here from Jana, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Jana or Jana. Do people buy Outland for the story or the product? You've mentioned obviously that the product has to stack up even with, you know, the beautiful story behind the brand. But they've asked if it is the story, how does that support a growth strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And look, I'm going to be perfectly honest. When we started, it was the story we were trying to sell. And that was because we hadn't actually learned how to make the product the quality that it needed to be. We spent the last 3 years really refining that through patterns and the way the quality of the product. But then also the right product at the right time. That's another really important part of it. I'm going to tell you one story, which I reckon demonstrates this quite well. One of our retailers reported to us that they had a customer, and this has happened more than once apparently. But they're at the counter and they're buying a pair of Outland Denim jeans. And the sales associate, when they were processing the sale, said, "Have you heard about? Do you know the brand?" And this person said no. And she said, and went on to tell them about what the brand stood for. And the customer then went back to the shelf and grabbed another pair of jeans in a different color and purchased them. And so what that says is that, yes, people absolutely buy because of the product. And that has to be our focus, because if that stops, we're just a charity. But the cherry on top, the thing that sometimes is the converter and sometimes people don't even know about, is our story. But we do know that when people hear our story and they know the impact of their purchase, it's absolutely a really powerful conversion tool, and we will continue to use it in that way.
And I think it builds a lot of brand loyalty as well. So they buy based on product once they know that fits and they love that, knowing the story, they want to keep buying from us. So the brand loyalty piece that it really brings is quite unique based on the story that we have as a company. Especially when I imagine if you're that step removed from the customer, say on you're the Iconics or, you know, the big sites, that you're one of many denim brands, you know, it's actually probably, I imagine, a bit harder for you to tell that story. So all you really are relying on that point until they can really engage with your story is your product and your quality, and, you know, those reviews that come through as well, which everyone, I'm sure I'm not alone in buying on based on reviews. So we've touched a little bit on sales as well and sell through, particularly within those bricks and mortar retailers. Jana's also asked, are the 2024 sales meeting expectations? Have you noticed any softening in the market? And if so, what strategies might you have to counter this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yes, we have noticed a softening in the market. I think though, when we say there's a softening in the market for Outland Denim, we're in a real growth phase. So, you know, we really, I don't want to say hibernated for the last 3 years, but our focus needs to be to refine our business before we go back to the international market once the economy is somewhat settled down. And yes, we're still in really uncertain times. And it's really important for us to make sure that our strategy is prepared for the worst. And so currently we're operating, we're a lean machine, as you know, we're really everybody that works here is focused on specific areas that in the past would have probably had more than one person on. And the way we've been able to do that is because we've cut the clutter. We've cut the things that don't matter. We've really used these last few years to identify what matters in the sale of a product, in the creation and sale of a product. And so I think that we're in a really solid position because we're lean to be able to weather the storms that may come. But on the other hand, for Outland Denim, we're also in a real growth phase. I think one thing that, economic uncertainty does present, and especially if you look at all the geopolitical issues that we see around the world, is it really makes people stop and think about what's important. People still shop bring these kinds of issues to the surface for them. And so what it means is that retailers are looking for brands that can speak to that for people. Why do you need to buy this particular product? Well, we're a brand as Outland Denim that stands for something. Nobody has been a brand that stands for that too. And so I think that our strategy is to make sure that we stay lean, make sure that we're communicating our story really well, make sure that our drops are on time, and that we're not overproducing anything. We want to sell out of products and not be left with stock to have to liquidate. And so that's a really, top line, strategy as far as what we're going to do for 2024 and the challenges that may present themselves.
And I think speak a little bit to that growth as well. As James mentioned, we've launched into the international market again this year, and for what we call the resort season, so the last quarter of this calendar year was our biggest pre-order season that we've seen since I've been in the company anyway. So that's really exciting for us, and it does show a lot of that growth, particularly coming from the international market and the wholesale side of the business, which is coming back up since COVID days.
And then also on top of that is that, retailers, there is a softening in orders. So that's making an order now for us to then make it and deliver it to them. But there's also an increase in what we call our ATS stock, so available to sell now stock, stuff that we've got in a warehouse. And so they're taking less risk, and brands can decide to take risk on that level or not. And what we've decided to do is across our core collection, we do carry stock. So we want to be available. And in fact, this is how we've won new stores, is because other brands haven't had stock to be able to get in. And we get in, we get a foot in the door. They realize how good our product is, how people love the brand, and then we continue to grow from there.
Amazing. And I guess tying all of that into your sustainability, one of the pillars of your vision is sustainability. You mentioned not wanting to be left holding a bunch of stock that you need to liquidate. I imagine there's some lots of maths going on behind the scenes from you, Kaylee, on all of your planning of all of that stock. We've got a question here from Kimberly. They have said to start us off, great presentation. They've asked, how does the share/equity process work, and do you have an expected investment dollar figure? So great question, Kimberly. For some of you, this may be a very new process, and I completely appreciate that. So if you've got any questions about how this actually works, you are probably not alone. So please pop them in the Q&A box. So Birchal is the intermediary, as I mentioned earlier in the process. Now, equity crowdfunding is done through an online platform. So that's Birchal. So all you'll need to do in terms of the actual process is create a profile. I'm sure if you haven't already, if you jump on Outland Denim's company profile, you'll be able to see a little bit of information and also a button where you can click to express interest. That's the first step of the process. So that means you'll be able to receive some information from Outland Denim. Probably the invite to this webinar might have been a key piece of info you may have gotten. We're in the expression of interest phase at the moment. So the offer will be going live in a couple of weeks. Now that's when the financial statements will be available via the offer document. You'll be able to view the company's constitution, also a subscription agreement, and you'll be able to then actually make your investment application for shares. Now you are, through equity crowdfunding, you will receive fully owned ordinary shares. Now, there's lots of information on our website, so feel free to jump on there. If you've got any questions, pop them in the box. I can even send you a link. We've got a help guide on our website as well. So our support email is support@birchal.com. So please reach out there if you've got any questions or if you're having any trouble navigating your way through the platform. James is also always there to help. You've got his details. But in terms of the expected figure, all of those pieces of info will become available to you when the offer opens. But if you're looking to have a chat, if you've got any more specific questions that you've got that you might hit you at 3 a.m. tonight, please reach out to James. He would love to have a chat with you, go into the nitty-gritty, the deep dives. I know you've had lots of conversations with lots of investors, James. So I hope that's answered your question. Georgina has also asked, is this opportunity only available to wholesale or sophisticated investors? No, it is not. That is one of the beauties of crowdsource funding. it actually opens up, we say it democratizes investment. So retail investors, everyday people on the street can invest as a retail investor. So that's an investment less than $10,000. So no, we are absolutely not open only to wholesale or sophisticated investors. There are a few criteria that you need to meet. So you've got to be over 18 and there's a few others. So please jump on the website and have a little bit of a look. And of course, if you've got any questions, please reach out. Luke has also just asked here, is there an estimate of the threshold for retail versus sophisticated investors? I think if I'm interpreting your question correctly there, Luke, $10,000. So if you would like to invest over $10,000, you'll need a wholesale investor certificate. If you've never heard of a wholesale investor certificate and you're not sure if you qualify, if you'd like to invest over $10,000, please reach out to your accountant. There's 2 criteria that you need to meet and they're escaping me at this exact moment. But I believe it's a total a yearly salary requirement threshold and also an assets total threshold that you'll need to satisfy. So please chat to your accountant. It's best to have that ready to go before we go live so that there's no potential delays in getting your investment in. Luke, I hope that answered the question. Please pop it or clarify for me if I haven't answered that for you. Bree has asked, I'm trying to work out a tactful way to ask this, so I'm sorry if it's clunky, no dramas, Bree. Is there a concern about funding both sides of modern slavery via people buying back their family members? That is a good question. James?
That is a good question. I'm not quite sure what you mean by funding both sides of modern slavery, though. We don't fund the negative side. We only fund the positive side. And so, you know, one of the differences with a brand like us is it's not about paying a fair wage or just doing the right thing. It's about lifting those that have been enslaved up and out. And so this isn't in any way, shape, or form funding anything negative to do with slavery. This is solving that problem.
I think perhaps my interpretation of that question is if a family member is perhaps benefiting from Outland Denim's generosity and services and then perhaps perpetuating the problem through buying a family member. But I'm sure that would be a very rare instance. But James?
Maybe to clarify that story that I shared as well, she bought her sister back from someone who owned her, that particular story. So it wasn't that they bought somebody else to join their family or, you know, they were a part of that problem. They were actually this kind of employment opportunity, yeah, again, solves that problem. So I've not heard of anything like that happening with anyone associated with what we're trying to do and what we are doing. Yeah, I probably haven't answered that question. I maybe don't understand quite what you're asking.
Perhaps. Oh, sorry, Kaylee, you go.
With now paying someone who's obviously contributed to modern slavery to have your sister brought back. And obviously modern slavery is being tackled across, you know, on the legal side of things in countries. But if you have the opportunity, you're probably going to bring a sister home because that's the fastest way it's going to happen. Yeah. But yeah, there's also other things going on the ground. There's organizations out there tackling it from a legal perspective, taking things to court and trying to stop the cause issues of it. That's obviously something that really needs to be supported. But on the day-to-day with a family, you're probably not going to stop someone doing that for a family member.
And I apologize that I didn't understand what you're saying, but I think that's exactly what you're asking. I personally, no, I don't have a problem with our staff going and using their money to do something like that. And in fact, there is organizations that specialize in, if they have to buy somebody back, they will raise money to go and buy someone back from someone who owns them. So it's not the ideal, but it's absolutely one of the strategies that is used by different NGO groups out there.
And ultimately, I'm sure you can't solve every problem. That would be, you wouldn't get much sleep then, James. We've got another question here from Damien. They've asked, where is Outland Denim at with regard to the number of private investors before a company must become a public company, and how might this impact the raise? Damien, that's a really good question. I'll jump in and James can touch on it as well. You will receive a full disclosure of the cap table in the offer document. So you'll be able to view all of those details when it becomes available. Just a little tidbit which you may not be aware of is crowdsource funding investors don't contribute to the non-employee shareholder cap test. So any investors that come on through a crowdsource funding raise don't contribute to that test for the purposes of that test. But James, if you wanted to touch on that a little bit.
I think you've pretty much covered it, that all the crowdfunding investors sit off the side of our cap table. Our cap table has 24 vacant positions on it. And, we're trying to keep them that way for, being able to grow and be available for that sort of growth strategy that we've got there. So, hopefully that answers.
Yeah, you've got 1,800 investors, is it now, James, over the two raises?
And this is a good time for me to even touch on the reason that we love equity crowdfunding. There's a few reasons, but I think the primary one is that we've got 1,800 investors, which are actually more like 1,800 ambassadors. And so they're not only buying our product and they're out there talking about it. And we've had lots of moments where the business has benefited because it's got lots of investors. So every time, if you buy into this, that every time you talk about it and somebody purchases it, it's benefiting that investment that you've made as well. And ultimately, that's how we see the power of something like this really going to the next level. When it is tough economically, you have 1,800, 2,000 people within your database who directly are benefited as a result of being able to talk about it, purchase a product. And then there's lots of benefits that we like to offer our investors as well, that we'll probably get to talk about as well.
Yes, and a lot of the rewards will become available when the offer goes live as well. I know James has got some big plans and good ideas. So do stay tuned. If you haven't expressed interest yet, do, and you'll be first to know when that goes live. Just so that everyone knows as well, when the offer goes live, it is exclusive to the expression of interest list. So if you haven't already, you'll be first to know and first to be let in to invest as well. And this has also led on to a great question, and I'm just conscious of time, so this will probably be our last question, and then I'll let everyone know how they can reach out to you if we've got any further queries. So Graham has asked, and it's a great question, as an investor, how can I promote the product on social media to my network with ease and not unintentionally undermining the product or company strategy? I'll just quickly jump in and say there, Graham, as an investor, there's lots of ways you can talk about and how proud you are of being an investor of Outland Denim. You will need to perhaps just have a check to make sure that you're not crossing into the threshold of making personal recommendations to invest, which I'm sure is a different beast, but you're absolutely welcome. And this is, as James touched on, it's one of the main, amazing benefits for companies is to have their dedicated fans and customers on board and, supporting and being ambassadors for their brand. So please, if you're loving what Outland Denim is doing, please share the word. I know it's an incredible story that, when people hear about it, it's pretty exciting and really speaks for itself. If you do have any queries though, please also reach out to support@birchal.com if you're just not quite sure how to do so. But I'll remind you of the question again, James, because I've just babbled on for a little bit. How can they promote the product on social media to my network with ease and not unintentionally undermine the product or company strategy?
Yeah, well, look, if you were to go to my LinkedIn, you'd see that I shared a video of one of our investors. They had a little video that they spoke to, and they shared that off their own back. Look, share for safety. If you want to share about this raise, share posts that we've shared or Birchal have shared. That way, that it's we're saying the right things. Word of mouth. Talk to your network. We'd love you to talk to your network and tell them about this opportunity. Ultimately, the more people that believe in this kind of change, it demonstrates something to the wider industry as well, which is a big part of what our vision is to impact this industry and change it. And so every single individual person that puts their voice toward this makes a difference on that.
Amazing. Well, that I think is a wrap. James, Kaylee, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you everyone who's joined us today. It's super exciting to hold these Q&As and share the incredible work of Outland Denim and all of our companies that raise through Birchal with you all. And we're so grateful that you were able to join us today. But I might let James sign off from us and from Birchal. Have a lovely day. And I'll leave it with you, James.
Yeah, once again, thank you so much, guys. What we're talking about here is an impact ecosystem that we've created over 12 years, and we would love you to be able to join us in taking it even further than it's already gone. Welcome any questions that you want to send through. There's lots of mediums. You'll find us out there, so send your questions through. But again, thanks for taking your lunch to join us.
Amazing. And I forgot to say the offer will open in just a few weeks. So keep an eye out. And as I said, express interest if you haven't already. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.